Welcome, you people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV is trade season, my boy.
Yeah, I told you guys in the last episode, we're making a quick turnaround because December 15th, Jay, you know what that means in terms of the NBA season?
Yeah,
We have
man.
like 95% of the league now available to be traded.
Dude, Christmas came a little early because when the trade machine starts kicking up, that means we are in full locked in mode. This is the part where you start putting up the fake draft, the fake trades, the fake mock drafts starting to settle themselves in terms of where people are kind of like falling in the early stages of the college season. December 15th is a really interesting benchmark in the NBA season because things start to kind of round out. We start to make real inferences about some of these teams, what they need, who they should be keeping, who they might want to move off from. There's a lot of different things going on, but December 15th is usually a really good benchmark in the league to see where the next shift is going into the new year.
Bro, we already got some freaking rumors going around. We're gonna try to find some new guys some homes. We're gonna be reacting to a freaking Bleacher Report article who already came out with freaking 5 trades that can like break the NBA season in half. So
Yeah.
like we're gonna be talking a lot of basically all trades this episode.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a very special draft for you. I think this is gonna be one of the more intense drafts because we're not putting on a freaking GM hat. We're putting a freaking commissioner's hat, bro, for this for
Yeah.
this draft. So it's gonna be a pretty decent draft, and of course, we got the quiz to round things out. But before we get into this episode, we do have to plug our other platforms. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at Knockdown J. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the daily content, remember to check out our TikTok and Instagram at Hit Your Free Throws Podcast. You got clips. You got the Daily NBA Picks Challenge. You have to be on lockdown for this. Bro, there's not a lot of games this week. I'm telling you right now.
Nah, man, it's gonna get spicy in that last week, bro, because there's not a lot to do. It's not, and but I think the in-season tournament's coming to a close too. So,
Tomorrow,
I
tomorrow,
mean,
it's the finals
that's only
tomorrow.
shortening the leash.
Yeah, 100%. And like, Jay, are you down to put double points on the NBA Cup final?
If you're down, I'm down.
Bro, we're both okay. This is what I'm telling you guys to look out for the Daily We Pick Challenge because we got double points already tonight. It's freaking Bulls versus
Yeah,
Toronto. You already know
yeah,
how that goes every single year. Even before we introduce the system, we have freaking Bulls and Toronto double points. And now
yeah.
we're putting one of our double points on the line for that. And Jay, I guess we're gonna add an extra game. You want to do the NBA Cup
Yeah, I
final?
mean, what are we doing? What are we doing that one tomorrow?
Well, I mean, like we could add it in tonight since it's only one game.
I mean, I already posted.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, cool. You know what? Just talk about it tomorrow. I'll add it to mine later.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll just record that one later on, and I'll just post it tomorrow before the game.
yeah,
No big.
no worries. Yeah, I'll just add it to mine today. It's whatever. But yeah, we're gonna add that as double points. They already have the lines up, so that's gonna be a crazy game. Of course, OKC versus Milwaukee. That should be a damn good final for the NBA Cup. So yeah, again, we've been talking about the freaking daily we pick shows for about a minute now. But yeah, you definitely want to check that out because we have a damn good punishment at the end of December. Last episode, I had to freaking do yourself as a banana for an entire episode. So, and I'm telling you, this month is worse. So you definitely don't want to lose right now. So again, make sure you check out the daily content for that, TikTok and Instagram. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening on the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, leave a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of y'all's support. Jay, you ready to talk some trades?
Bro, trade machine was cooked up and it was looking very spicy. This Bleacher Report, man, they setting the tone for what should be a crazy trade season. If even one of these happens, the NBA is about to get cracked.
100%, bro. This is going to be an insane episode. And we're going to start it off, though, before we go get into the Bleacher Report article. Some guys that are in the trade block right now, Jay. Some guys
Yeah.
we haven't talked about yet. I mean, we've talked about the Alex Caruso. Sorry, we've talked about the Brandon Ingrams. We talked about your boy Zach LaVine. We talked about
Yeah.
some other guys, including like CJ McCollum in the past. But Jay, new rumors are out. More guys apparently on the block. Let's try and find a hole for these guys. We're gonna talk about these 3 guys. We're gonna try and me and Jay are gonna talk about which team we want to see them on most. So Jay, I'm gonna give you the first player here, the guy who's been in the news all this week,
Dude,
Jimmy Butler.
dude.
People, there've been those conflicting reports. You remember the Twitter rant from his agent saying, Shams is a fraud, this and that. This guy went on a freaking 5-tweet tweet kind of rant talking about Shams, and Shams is like, "Bro, I'm trusting my sources. Like, I don't care what y'all say." But it's Jimmy staying. It's looking like he's leaving Miami pretty shortly. So Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Where's Jimmy Butler gonna land, or where do you want him to land? Actually,
Okay, so the place that I think the team that's gonna make the hardest push for him, just based off of what I've seen in the news, I think is the Golden State Warriors. I think that's the team that's gonna try to put their stamp on this whole thing. I think they're also the team that I think we discussed this last episode too. They feel like the team that needs the biggest shakeup. Like they're the team that feels like they need to make a move in order for us to really put them back into that championship caliber section of our tier list because we think that they're good, but the last couple of weeks have made us a little doubtful about what their real championship equity is. The team I would like to see him go to, though, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. It's a team that's been needing to do a consolidation trade for a hot little minute, and this might be an interesting play on it. I think that the Memphis Grizzlies should take a look at Jimmy Butler, man.
those were one of my teams on my radar for him.
Yeah, man. I mean, look at it. I mean, there's a few teams that I could think of on the short list that would probably need to make like a legitimate consolidation trade. But Memphis has been one of those teams that's been in the news for this a few different times. Jaylen Brown, remember the Kevin Durant stuff? He was in it for you guys with
Brandon
OG
Ingram.
and
I swear the
Brandon
last we talked
Ingram.
about Brandon Ingram a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
I mean, I remember when OG Anunoby first went on the block. Me and you had that
yeah.
conversation about him in Memphis. They've always kind of had that conversation around needing a knockdown, like either a knockdown shooter wing, somebody who's a two-way wing, somebody who could be a legitimate closer for them in one way or another, and just somebody who could take some of the ball handling responsibilities off of Ja Morant. We know how good Desmond Bane is, but at that wing position, that's always been their fatal flaw. Jimmy Butler also brings the kind of like gritty, like hard nosed attitude that I think Memphis still embodies, even though it's not in the same way as the grit and grind version of the Grizzlies. I still think they play with a certain level of swag and mean streak that I think Jimmy Butler can easily assimilate into. Um, and they're a team that has the assets, bro. They have young pieces across the board. They're one of the deepest teams in the league. They tend to always find a diamond in the rough. They're like one of the best drafting teams in the league. They're one of the best undrafted pickup teams in the league as well. They can pick guys off the
Shout
scrap
out.
heap and make
I
them
mean,
work.
shout.
Make them
We talked.
work.
We freaking talked about Jalen Wells earlier this season as a freaking second round pick, and he's been balling for them.
Dude, we brought up Jay Huff on the podcast like 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago. Like Scottie Pippen Jr. was somebody they picked up
yeah.
out of the G League who was initially cutting his teeth as part of the, I believe
Lakers.
it's the Los Angeles Lakers G League
Yeah,
squad.
Lakers. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, they just always tend to find a way. So it's kind of take your pick of the litter in terms of guys that you think might be good foundational pieces to kind of make, small adjustments with next to a Tyler Hero, next to a Bam Adebayo on that Miami Heat team. And Miami has a really strong culture that I think if they grab anybody from Memphis, they can easily integrate them into a relatively strong situation. Memphis is a team that I think is a sleeping giant here, especially for the wings like a Brandon Ingram, like a Jimmy Butler, who I think are guys who can definitely fit in certain areas where teams desperately need like a wing shot creator. Like, and Memphis is just one of those.
They were definitely on my radar. I was thinking like the only reason I was kind of shut off is the fact that I think more than anything, shooting is the need for them. Just like more
True.
shooting on the wing. I know Jimmy Butler is willing to take threes. Is he the best three-point shooter in the world? Obviously not. But he is someone who brings a culture with him,
Yeah.
who brings that kind of playoff edge, which is a huge reason why freaking Miami always had some deep playoff runs. A big part of it was Jimmy Butler's never say die attitude. So bringing
True.
that to Memphis is great. Bringing that kind of like new school grit and grind, maybe that's the best way
Yeah.
to put it, the new school grit and grind into it. I like the idea. I just think that you know. It's just like in terms of like a play fit, I'm still kind of concerned because like this is why we talked about having Kevin Durant in the past, why we wanted OJ to know because
Yeah.
a lot better 3-point shooters. They could, and it's more of a better fit next to John Moran. Jimmy Butler not that great, but I do think that's a viable option. But Jay, if there's one team I wanted to go for Jimmy Butler in a team who slowly but surely is adding that culture, but I think this could really solidify it. Yo, give me the Houston Rockets.
I feel.
I feel.
I
I mean,
feel.
they started it with freaking bringing Ime Adoka,
Mm.
bringing Fred VanVleet's also on an expiry deal. I think it's a nice little switch there. And maybe you have, extra draft picks available. You can even throw in this team is hella deep. You can maybe throw in someone like a Jay Sean Tate, maybe some super young guy like near the end of your bench to help facilitate this trade. But man, Jimmy Butler on this team, I think the basis is you probably have to ship out Fred VanVleet just to make the money work. But this opens up more opportunities for someone like a Reed Shepard. Maybe Amin Thompson gets a lot more minutes in this role, and then you have kind of like Emi Udoka bringing that defensive mentality, but getting that as a player in Jimmy Butler. I think that this team could get that extra edge to actually turn this really good season that they've had so far into potentially being dark horse sleepers, man. Getting someone like Jimmy Butler because they've shown they have the talent there in a freaking all-star level season like by Alperen Sengun. You've had people like Tari Easton step up, Amin Thompson. You have so many of these guys are able to put buckets on the court, but you need someone to kind of lead them going forward. And I love Steady Freddie, man, but Jimmy Butler is a true is a better leader, and I think is a good guy to especially bang home Emi Udoka's message, especially on the defensive end. I think he would be a great fit there.
Yeah, I think the biggest question will be whether or not you have to sacrifice Fred VanVleet in order to get it done. I think if you can get away with not having to do that and maybe focus on maybe
Dylan Brooks would
because
be
I
a
was
bit.
gonna say Dylan Brooks maybe being the bigger salary, and sweetening the deal up with the fact that they have future draft capital, along with the fact that they have a former first round pick that they can't even field real minutes for in Cam Whitmore, who could be a high ceiling guy at the two guard slash wing position for them.
They could throw him in. They could really throw him
Yeah.
into this deal. Yeah.
I mean, Houston is playing with a very interesting deck of cards because they've been a team that's brought up over the last 2 or 3 years, right? As another team that kind of similar to Memphis, kind of needs to make that
KD
consolidation
and
trade.
Harden. Yeah.
Dude, KD, Harden, Devin Booker came up
Yeah.
last year, even, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the Houston Rockets positioning themselves to try to go after a big fish. This has been something that's been brought up over the last couple of years. Of course, their market has been brought up as a very attractive portion of why they might be able to go after somebody as well. This has been kind of a thing waiting in the wings. And when you also look at the structure of their team, like I said, Cam Whitmore is a former late first round pick, not even on their main roster. Reed Shepard, who they just took third overall this year, barely getting real rotation minutes. He's in there, but just considering the depth that they have, there's a real log jam there. I mean, even Jabari Smith, who I love at the 4-5 position, he's a guy who's still trying to find his footing on a team that has, real forward depth with Amin, Tari, Alperin. Like this is a team that has real assets. And I think if you can get away with not having to trade Fred VanVleet, that gives you something even more steady because now you have Fred at the point guard position. You still have Jalen Green, who has the high upside at the two guard position. Jimmy Butler at the three. Take your pick of the litter between Tari Eason,
Jabari.
Amin,
Probably we start probably
Jabari,
Bari.
probably
Probably
still
Bari.
Jabari, and then you have Alperen in the middle with that. I think that's a really good starting five that you can feel confident in. And one thing that we've said about the young version of the Houston Rockets over the last 2 seasons, and I think we still say it a lot more this year, especially now that they've been playing high level basketball. They still don't have a closing guy. They don't have a go-to, get me a bucket in the final 3 minutes. We need to make every possession count. I don't think they've found that guy yet. I think
They
we've got
wanted it to be
Alperin.
Jalen. They wanted it to be Jalen Green, but yeah, he's
I
just
think they want it to be Jalen Green. I think we thought it was going to be Alperin Şengün. And I think the guy it really has to be is someone they don't have on the roster yet. That guy might be Jimmy Butler.
I think that it's a good spot for him. And again, they have assets to be able to throw to the Miami Heat, especially like those young pieces who, like you mentioned, they're barely making the rotation. Obviously, they're not going to trade over Reed Shepard. They freaking just
Right.
spent a third overall pick on him. But Cam Whitmore has been bouncing out in and out of the G League. He's shown some big flashes last year. Could be a good piece for Miami to put beside Hero and Bam Adebayo going in the future. So who knows? Who knows? But I think that in Memphis, again, these two teams have been in freaking trade rumors for years now. Is this the time they finally pull the trigger on Jimmy Butler? Who knows? Jay, next player though. This is going to be really interesting
Oh, man.
because it feels like we thought that this guy's going to be a surefire franchise, facing the franchise type of guy. But now, by all reports, it feels like the Pelicans are giving up on him, man. Zion Williamson. It's interesting. Feels like the report I saw this morning, They're willing to trade away Zion, willing to trade away CJ, and they just got DeJounte Murray, and they're already looking to trade him away. Basically, everyone on the roster, bar um, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Yves Messi, are all available, according to
Yeah.
reports now. So, Jay, this is probably one of the tougher ones, but
Yeah.
Zion Williamson, former first overall pick, one of the most exciting players in the league when he's on the floor. Where are you trying to? What place would you like to see him in?
Okay, so again, kind of two teamers, but this is the thing that I think would be the most interesting to see him on. I believe will be the Charlotte Hornets. I think that would be the most interesting team. The team
That
that
was
I
my
think
that was like my first instinct, but I'll
really
get to you why. Now
okay,
I'll get to you why I kind
okay.
of moved off. Okay, I'll tell you why.
Now the team that I think actually should make the strongest push for him, and especially because I don't feel like we really know what the young crop group looks like for guys like Jonathan Kaminga, for example, who we'll talk about a little bit later. I think Brooklyn should really take a look. I think that let's go ahead and talk about it. They already took a flyer on Ben Simmons. And although I don't think they've reaped the real benefits of that to the extent that they might have hoped, they've shown that they've been willing to take real risks and flyers on guys in the past. I mean, shoot, one of their best seasons of recent memory was the Island of Misfits Toys team back in what,
Mhm.
2014, 2015? Like
Which which team was that?
that was the D'Angelo Russell squad,
No,
right?
that was 2017-18, like
Oh,
something like that.
27, excuse me, 2017, 2018. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean like that I mean they've been willing to take these flyers on guys in the past and help kind of like research certain players careers in one way or another. And I also think in a clean slate in a area like Brooklyn that I think that team, that organization, I think is going to be much more committed to a slow cooker in a way that I don't think New Orleans ever was. I mean, they made, if we're going to be honest, I think they made the exact same mistake with Zion that they did with AD. It was like, oh, we're good. He's all-star caliber. Let's start making trades to start being like super dangerous. And it went from easy bake oven to microwave and you blew it up. And now here we are. You have all this depth, but nobody's healthy. You have all this talent, but nobody's healthy and nobody's cohesive. And now you have to pay Brandon Ingram. CJ McCollum's contract looks iffy. DeJounte Murray, you just traded for it. It already feels like a not so cohesive situation. Zion Williamson can't stay on the floor, right? It
Mhm.
feels like the easy bake oven approach has never been something that the New Orleans Pelicans have been able to like really commit to. I think the Brooklyn Nets have the real capability to not only commit to that, but remember they also have their future. They have their first round picks back in the trade they got over the summer, obtained back from Houston. This is a team that wants to be able to kind of stack up blue chip talent and really kind of build from the ground up. Here's another thing I think it would be really important too. As opposed to Charlotte, I think Brooklyn would actually be willing to go back to experimenting with what Stan Van Gundy did with Zion Williamson when he was there, which is Point Zion, which I believe was the best version of the New Orleans Pelicans when everybody was healthy, was when Zion Williamson had the ball in his hands a lot more, got to operate from the top of the key, really operate as a decision maker, and play with a lot more fervor. Like he just got to move differently with the ball in his hands, much more in a higher usage. I think in Brooklyn, he has a real opportunity to do that as opposed to like example for Charlotte, he might just be a glorified Miles Bridges. Now, granted, Miles Bridges averaged 20 points and 9 rebounds one season, but I still think that he might be relegated to a certain kind of role. I think Brooklyn would be able to open up the experimentation for him.
I like it. I was thinking of the Brooklyn Nets as well. Kind of passed by my mind just because they have time to kind of like figure this out. So unlike other teams where you're like, okay, maybe you don't want to wait it out for that long, especially because of these like nagging injuries where you don't know when he's gonna be like fully healthy.
Yeah.
Brooklyn has the time to deal with that. They freaking
Right.
took on Ben Simmons. They're willing to do that. So I do like that choice. The only reason I did go for Charlotte was do you really want to have a core two guys of LaMelo Ball and Zion Williamson, and thinking of like all the injury possibilities that are already like tied to these two guys? Like I didn't want to freaking bring on the curse from the Pelicans to them now. At that point, I just didn't want to like bring. I just feel like that would just like bring,
Dyson Daniels said that there might be something down in the water there. You never know. Maybe getting out of New Orleans might be the trick for Zion to resurface. That
yeah.
might
But
be
I don't think the Charlotte is a place. Just ask freaking LaMelo and his freaking like all of his ankle injuries.
I can't
So
argue with you on that one.
that was my issue. But I do like both of those options. I think Brooklyn's a good one, especially if they want to really like slow burn this. I think that's a good place for him to go. And I think like that's a good place to like revitalize his career and potentially still be a number one option. So I like that. But Jay, let's find him a place where he can maybe compete right away. A team who's dealt with injuries. Again, I don't know how they're going to be able to do this, but a team that's who's dealt with injuries, but people have come back stronger. And let's just make this team super fun. You talked about Memphis in the first one. Put freaking Zion on Memphis.
Oh my goodness. That's definitely a place to revitalize his career. Easy money.
Bro.
Easy money.
Peak Zion, peak Ja, peak Triple J. The idea. I like the idea. Again, the idea is there. The contract, the other stuff, that's what's going to be an issue. But when you think about freaking Memphis, you have freaking John Morant go through like hell amount of injuries, Jaren Jackson Jr., but they always come back and they always feel like they're better than they were before the injury. That's what it's always felt like with these guys. I mean, Desmond Bane, slowly but surely he's coming back, but he's been getting a lot better. These guys are great at development. They're great at trying to manage these injuries and making sure that people are ready when they come back. Remember, keyword, ready to come back from injury. I think they have one of the best, medical staff in the league. I think that they have a great system in place there, led by Taylor Jenkins, and it's like a win by committee sort of system. I mean, they've been doing this for years now. But then you have a mixture of freaking Ja, him, and Triple J. I think in terms of wanting to see Zion on high level basketball, making sure that team is willing to, take the time and actually get him healthy, try and get him like the best version of him as possible. Memphis could be the place. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but it just seems like a lot of fun if that's the case, and they're gonna make it happen.
I mean, I think it's funny because obviously that kind of fits in the same mold of like your argument against Jimmy Butler in the sense of like obviously shooting at that 3 position is kind of like their biggest hole, and Zion wouldn't bring that. But his athleticism in a way makes up for his lack of shooting the same way I think you could say that Jimmy Butler's ability to knock down mid-range shots at a high level and also in real crunch time situations kind of makes up for the 3-point shooting gap. That's just going to be a fun team, at the end of the day.
No, I understand it's a freaking, it kind of contradicts my Jimmy Butler thing, but I'm like, look, you have a chance to get a potential superstar, a potential guy to like pair up with already your superstar guard. This is more of like a potential game-breaking scenario here.
Yeah.
With Zion, rather than Jimmy Butler, who again tail end of his career, having to have to pay him another contract. Zion's already under contract for a while, and by the looks of things, I don't think the Pelicans are expecting much draft capital in return.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's obviously going to be tough to find a contract, but let's make things interesting and see if they're able to freaking revitalize Zion.
No, I mean, I think they're one of the most interesting teams. Now, okay, this is obviously all jokes, so don't take me seriously because there's no way in the world this would be an actual trade. But we know the ideal team to revitalize Zion's career is actually the Miami Heat. Let's tell the truth. And I'm not like, and this is all jokes, obviously, right? But we know the Miami Heat program, right? Less than 10% body fat, certain kind of off-season requirements in order to actually get on the floor, right? That's why Kyle Lowry wasn't able to play his first 2 weeks in the system because they do things a little differently over there. Let's be honest. The best way to, and we're talking about a team just to be able to revitalize his career from a physical standpoint, the Miami Heat, hilariously enough, will be the funniest team for him to land on, because if there was any team that could whip Zion into shape from a physical standpoint, it's the Miami Heat. Now, I agree with you. Not obviously that's all jokes. There's no way the Miami Heat are trading for Zion Williamson. I don't even know how it's feasible.
Yeah.
But the Memphis element, I think there's a lot of pluses to that in a way where, again, if you're going to make a consolidation trade, and Memphis has control over their draft capital pretty strongly over the next couple of years because they haven't really done anything.
Yeah.
Um, and they have guys, and I
It's
think
all
that
organic. It's all organic, bro, with Memphis right now.
yeah, it's all. I mean, them and OKC are operating in a different. They're operating in a different salary cap, dude. They're playing like with MLB money compared to the rest of the NBA in terms of the way they're building up internally and kind of functioning with their money without necessarily going after the big names across the board. Like
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, putting a flyer on Zion Williamson in Memphis, I think you give yourself a completely different play style that they haven't had. They've always kind of been an up and down, scary, fast paced team. This would just kind of put them into like Indiana Pacers last season territory, but
Yeah.
even more dangerous around the basket and even more dangerous in the open floor. Like the West would just be like where do you even rank that? Like where would you rank that team in the Western Conference this year?
If you're
Like are
getting
they
a
still
healthy,
second? Like
that would be a top 4 team if you get a peak Zion, like a healthy Zion. I mean, they're
where
already
would you
number 2. They're already number 2. That's the thing. Which is
okay, so let's do the okay. Who do you think would have to be the sacrificial lamb in order to be able to trade for Zion Williamson? Because we know that there's probably gonna be something that
that's
Memphis would have to legitimately.
that's my only issue. This is why I said like this is kind of a pipe dream. I don't know how they're gonna make it happen because they already have
Uh
money tied to like bait. I mean, it would include Marcus Smart. I will tell you that for sure. Marcus Smart was
yeah,
gonna
for
have to be
sure.
part of that trade. Vince Williams with his new extension, like Brandon Clark still is making over 10 million a year. Like you're gonna have to add up something. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I think there's a world where if you can have Jaw at the one, still keep Desmond Bain, I think Zion would have to operate as like a small ball 3-4. And I think honestly, if Zion starts, Jaren Jackson might have to start at center, but
Yeah,
he would act as a stretch big. But he would kind of be like Miles Turnery. I think would probably be like the kind of role he would play.
I mean, like he's been better at 3-point shooting now, so it's not really like the worst thing in the world. But again, it's really tough. That's basically
Yeah,
my
it's
idea. Like
definitely a
it's
tough
tough.
fit, but like theoretically speaking, a John Morant, Desmond Bain, Vince Williams at the three, Zion Williams at the four, Jared Jackson plays small ball five for them as a stretch big. That lineup to me, I think in the NBA championship picture, I'm putting them top six. I don't know
Yeah,
where in the six, but I think they would be top. And I'm talking about not just in the West. I mean,
yeah.
like in the
The league,
NBA in
yeah,
terms
the
of
league, yeah,
championship
yeah,
favor. I think they would be top six with that lineup in a postseason. If that was their starting five out of what would get reduced to like an 8-9 man, like really an 8-man rotation come
yeah,
postseason time.
yeah. And we haven't even talked about Gigi Jackson and all this, which is kind of crazy.
Facts.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's tough to find a place for Zion, especially because one, we didn't think he was going to be available as quickly, but also like they're kind of forced to at this point. But
Yeah.
trying to find a place for Zion is going to be tough. Let us know what you guys think down below.
Yeah.
Jay, final guy here on this list though, Jonathan Kaminga. I feel like they could have done this years ago to kind of maximize Steph Curry's window, but now they're in a tough position where it's like trade him now, pay him, or pay him, which is going to be like a really tough, like which is going to be really tough regarding especially their salary cap right now because it's really really bad. They're in a really really tough spot there in Golden State. But Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you once again. If you want to find a new place for Jonathan Kaminga, where would you put him?
Can I can I name something like a trade that I think is actually like hilarious, but I think there's no way in the world
What is
that
it?
like they
Yeah,
actually do it.
go ahead.
Do the Clippers just say bump it and send Y over to Golden State and just reset with Jonathan Kaminga? Do they just send Kawhi and say, look, bro, we can't keep playing this game. We already let Paul George walk for nothing. We're not sure what the future of this team is. Norman Powell's playing above his weight.
James
James
Harden's
Harden
playing
is
better than
going into
expected.
he's playing better than expected, but remember, he's also going into unrestricted free agency this summer, which the likelihood that he'll re-up is probably high, but nonetheless, aging superstar, a guy that could potentially move somewhere else depending on what his value is and what he personally values. when going into free agency this summer. A team that really has not identified a real direction for themselves. And if they make a few things happen in terms of some of the shedded salary that could come off this summer, they could be a team with some decent money. Nothing crazy, but some decent money on them to not only bring in Jonathan Kuminga where they can re-sign him, but maybe even get a guy or two to kind of like, flesh out what would be, the beginning of a young core for a Clippers team that we got to remember really doesn't have draft capital like that. So getting young talent in any way, shape, or form they can via trade is best opportunity to hit the reset button because they're not going to be able to do it via draft picks. They're way too far gone in that regard. So, I
I
mean, Kawhi Leonard,
yeah.
they say he's close to returning. Ty Lue said he's not going to play this week. Maybe he plays coming off of Christmas. I think this is a guy that by the trade deadline will definitely be back on the floor. Kawhi Leonard's going to have not played half the year, which means he's going to be about as well rested as it gets. The Golden State Warriors have been playing freaking 11 deep, so you might not have to run Kawhi Leonard more than what, like 25, 27 minutes a game up until the postseason, which could kind of keep his legs fresh. Depends on how Golden State wants to play it because they're kind of in the thick of a weird Western Conference right now.
Mhm.
But if you have to trade Jonathan Kuminga, knowing that the financial circumstances say that you probably are in a worse situation if you re-sign him because the money is going to make things even more difficult for them to get better next season than it is even this year.
Mhm.
Getting a Kawhi Leonard might not be the worst acquisition possible. The biggest caveat is going to be, do you know if he's going to be back by the turn of the new year? That's going to be the biggest. You're going to have to know that in some
Mhm.
shape or form in order to feel comfortable making that trade.
I think that's definitely an interesting one. I think that it could be possible. Like this is what I was talking about, like when I was talking off the top with Jonathan Kuminga. They've been holding to this asset for so long. Like they've been saying, trade him a couple years ago, trade him last year because they want to because we know that Steph Curry is so elite. We know that he's a board. He's basically a top 5 player in the league. Use that, maximize Steph Curry's window because once Steph and Dre leave, what is this Warriors team? They're gonna have to start from scratch anyway, whether you have Jonathan Kuminga or not. I know they want to do this whole 2 timelines thing, but clearly Poole, Kaminga, Mose Moody to a certain extent, they're not those guys to really lead you into that future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they got to move off him now, which means his value is probably less than what they could have traded for if they traded him last year or even the year before that. Trading for Kawhi Leonard is a possibility, man. I do think it could be a possibility. Now, would you rather have someone that you would, not have to pray to be on the court for at least 80% for the remainder of the season, even if you're coming out of the new year? Yes.
Right.
But if that's the type of caliber player you could get from a Jonathan Kuminga trade, I say F it. Just risk it out. Who knows? I mean, you play a bunch of players anyway. I saw freaking Lindy Waters play 20 plus minutes yesterday. Like this Warriors team will play anyone and everyone. So
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea, but the Clippers are a good one. The Clippers are definitely an interesting one to throw out there. I like that idea though, especially because the Clippers really have no direction, like you mentioned. I don't. They're one of the teams where they're like, okay, they're not good enough to compete, but they're not bad enough to tank.
Right.
You
Exactly.
sounds familiar? Bulls fan over there, Raptors fan over here.
Dude.
Sounds
And
familiar.
at least both of our teams have some semblance of draft capital. The Clippers are
And young talent.
far gone. Yeah, and at least like some young pieces to be able to point to. The Clippers are far gone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the tough part with them is they put so much into the PG trade, acquiring James Harden, right? The some of the moves they made involving even going after Russell Westbrook initially, right? Even that put them in a weird position in terms of draft capital and just financially. So they're a team that just there's no real way for them to. We mentioned the homegrown talent aspect with Memphis a minute ago. Like there's no real route for them to do that in the immediate future. It's going to have to be kind of tapping on uh the depth of a team like a Memphis, a Houston, some of the younger guys in Golden State. Like you're gonna have to go after teams like that who are in win now mode in one way or another. Oklahoma City Thunder, for example, too, another team with just like insane depth where you're like, do you really need all those guys? And you kind
Yeah.
of like tap their shoulder and say, like, look, We have Kawhi Leonard. Y'all know what type of talent he is when he's healthy. Now we know that when he's healthy thing is a pretty decent caveat, but you also understand that when his healthy caveat is really like is pinned in, excuse me, you know what kind of player you're getting and you know how he elevates a roster overnight. And some teams may be willing to take that risk. We saw that your Toronto Raptors were willing to do that and were able to reap the benefits of it. Others may be a little fearful because Kawhi Leonard is much different than what he was compared to 2019. So it really all depends. But I think that if there was any route for them to be able to reset, they want to go after young talent in the trade market. And I would make the argument, I could be wrong, but of all the young players that are on the open market, or not on the open market, but all of the young players that we would at least consider as real trade assets that are actually on the block, not just like hypothetically, Jonathan Kaminga might actually be the best talent. Now, that depends on how you view Zion as an asset, given his entry history as well. But if we're just
Yeah.
talking about current day circumstances as they are, Jonathan Kaminga might actually be the best young talent on the market right now.
Probably at this point, yeah. Especially like most attainable, he's definitely someone that will be for the right price. And I think
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard, especially at this point with the with the Warriors, they're willing to make that risk. So that's definitely a good spot.
Yeah.
But Jay, for myself, if I had to put Jonathan Kuminga somewhere, the Hornets. I think
Yeah, that's
the
a good
Hornets.
yeah.
Honestly, like you talked about freaking I think it was you talked about Zion being a souped up Miles Bridges. I think that's how I feel exactly with Jonathan Kuminga. Basically, Miles Bridges with a higher ceiling.
Yeah.
Maybe like not as great of a scorer because I think Miles Bridges at his like prime was like what averaging like 22 points per game or something like that.
Yeah, like his best season was like the year before everything popped off with him
Yeah,
off the court. So I
with
mean,
him off the court. Yeah,
he peaked really recently.
yeah. So he's like what a 20 peaked as like a 22 point per game scorer, so he could score, but
Yeah.
athleticism, potential on the defensive end, being someone who doesn't need the ball at his hands at all times, could be that guy next to LaMelo Ball. And play it simple. Kuminga to the Hornets could be a move there. I was thinking that or the Pistons. Really is like my two options for him as like a
Yeah.
as a chance to kind of like reset for himself and try to like regain that value that even Golden State saw in him like a few years ago.
Yeah, and I think the Pistons is another really good one because at the end of the day, the thing that both of these teams have in common, and the Pistons aren't dealing with this as much this season as they were a season prior, but just having real prospects to be able to lean into, right? Like I think this year with Detroit, they feel a lot better about what Cade can be in the future with the way he's played so far during the first 20 plus games of the season. I think they feel much more encouraged behind what Jaden Ivey has done so far this year, right? They also probably feel very encouraged by what bringing competent talent like a Malik Beasley, like a Tobias Harris into the room
Yeah.
gives their team in terms of them just being much more competitive. Are they winning at a much higher rate than they were last season? I mean,
For
relatively
them,
speaking,
yes. For
yeah,
them, yes.
relatively speaking, yes, if all things being considered. But this is a team that wasn't going to turn into a postseason team overnight. Even when I had jokingly kind of threw out the hot take prior to the season that I was like, if we look at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, could Detroit be a team that lands in the in that last play-in tournament spot? I remember bringing that up during our hot takes. And do I feel like that's where they end up? I'm a little less bullish on that now compared to like before the season started. But they're a team that's just much more scrappy this year than they were before. And I think maybe acquiring a Jonathan Kaminga would maybe kind of continue to build on top of that because he plays so intense, because he is still playing for a contract, which means, he has something to prove. And he can easily be their second best player behind Cade Cunningham on the wing, like day one. And the Charlotte Hornets thing I think is interesting because again, similar to Detroit, they just need blue chip guys, man. Like I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing with Charlotte the last couple of seasons is like we don't even really. I think we know Lamelo was part of the core,
Hmm.
and I feel relatively confident about that. I think we feel confident that Brandon Miller
Brandon
is a part
Miller
of the
for
core.
sure.
I think Trey Mann is cutting himself to be like a legitimate piece they might want to really hold on to. But after that, dude, it gets really murky. Like Mark Williams hasn't played in like what feels like an eon. You know what I mean? And he felt like a real foundational guy at the center position for them. But like he's been in and out of the rotations very a lot over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And outside of that, like who is your like third or fourth staple guy on this roster? Like I don't think they have that. I think Trey Man probably is their third, but that should tell you how distinctively like in deep lack of a better way to phrase it, like how deep how like how deep shit they are, bro. Like once you
Yeah.
get past their first like two guys, you're really not sure
Hmm.
what else the real makeup of this team long term is.
Yeah. So
Jonathan Kaminga would easily be their third best young talent above Mark Williams, and we don't even know what Mark Williams means to this roster right now.
yeah, he hasn't played this year. But yeah, so those are, I mean, basically just like places where it's like, yeah, they're missing that other guy. They're basically
Yeah,
missing that third like blue chip roster, like you mentioned. So putting coming on those rosters could make things a lot more interesting. At least like give them like a good basis to kind of build off of that. Because like Pistons are trying to build off of like Ivy and Cunning and Cade, and then like Ball and Miller are kind of the basis for the Hornets. So maybe adding Kuminga to the mix could really improve stuff for them. So I do like those players for them. But yeah, let us know what you guys think down below. Where do you want to see Jimmy Butler, Zion Williamson, Kuminga? Where do you want to see them go? Because they look like they're heading out eventually, whether it's this trade deadline or even in the offseason. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Jay, moving on to the next topic though. We talked about it at the start of the show.
yeah.
Like December 15th came around and Bleacher Report blessed us with five. What do they label it? Five trades that could be scared. That could scare the rest of the league because I think it was
Yeah.
like recently it was like December 13th, and they're like, okay, there's a bunch of players finally being available to get traded soon. Let's try and come up with these trades. So they labeled it as like these scary trades that could potentially scare the league. And Jay, I'm telling you, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at these trades. I'm like, this Bleacher Report kind of went maybe overly crazy with a couple of these.
Yeah, man, they were in the trade machine cooking up the best 2K my team level stuff they could. But I'm not gonna lie, if the theme is trades that could give the rest of the league nightmares on a night to night basis, mission accomplished.
Yes.
Like some of these trades are like so game breaker that it's like we were joking about one of them, and we'll get to it a little bit later on, but we were joking about one of them where it was like the mere concept of what that roster would look like after the trade is like hilarious. Like
Yes.
hilarious in a way that like makes you look at it where you almost have to laugh not to cry, which
Yeah.
again, nightmare for the rest of the league, mission accomplished, bro. Like
Yeah.
some of these trades are actually ridiculous
Yeah.
in terms of how dangerous some of these squads could be if these things actually came to fruition.
Yeah, basically we're gonna be like, can this trade happen? Can this not? We're just gonna go through each of these five trades, man. Let's get into the first one. And Jay, I think this is the trade that you're talking about because this is the one that could legitimately game break the league. Mind you, this was made before the Anthony Melton got traded, so
Yeah.
I myself had to make some moves to the trade just so everything is like in place. So, who wants to see LeBron team with Steph Curry? I know I do. Now, Bleacher Report has an idea here. Jonathan Kaminga, Lindy Waters, Brandon Pajemski, Andrew Wiggins, Gui Santos, and instead of D'Anthony Melton, you add in Kyle Anderson in exchange for Braun Bronny and a 2029 first. Jay, quick thoughts?
I mean, okay, look, I think most Warrior fans are gonna dub this because giving up Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kaminga, especially Jonathan Kaminga in this trade, but I think both of them together in the same trade, and they're giving up pods and they're giving up future first round, but future potential first round picks. Like I just think that Warriors fans are gonna look at Kaminga plus multiple potential firsts and pods, just that portion alone, I think, is going to turn a lot of Warriors fans off. I think this is one of those trades where Bleacher Report views it as like the Lakers doing LeBron a solid. But I also think that from the Warriors' perspective, I think fans would hate it, but I think the front office would view that as actually Loki getting away with murder. Because like
I yeah, I think
Pods hasn't played well this season, which is something you had mentioned off pod. Andrew Wiggins is a solid, steady hand, but like he's still signed for another 2 years. And to a pretty hefty contract, despite what people want to like really, like say about his value overall. And like they just can't pay Jonathan Kuminga. But now the Lakers will have to figure out how to do it. So
This is how I
I
see
don't
this.
know, man.
Basically what you're saying is like the Golden State might do it. Lakers probably wouldn't do this, like in like IRL. I mean, this is only if like the Lakers like, you know what, LeBron, well, we'll do you a favor and actually get you to like another like potential championship contender.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is who I see liking. This is how I see this. Front office of the Warriors would love this. The NBA head office would be drooling over this idea.
Yeah.
Laker fans would be like, "What the? What's happening?"
Yeah.
And everyone else on the outside is like, "Yes, yes, let's go. We want to do it for the. We all want to see it for the plot, man. We want to see LeBron and Steph Curry play together. We had so much fun watching Team USA over this past summer, where LeBron and Steph were dapping each other up, running those freaking dribble handoffs and everything. It was a beauty to watch. Basically, every one of the Lakers fans win here. Every one of the Lakers
I
fans.
mean, good point. Good point. I feel like the Lakers will be doing Golden State a solid. They'd be doing the rest of the league a solid to a certain extent, like you mentioned beforehand, from an interest perspective. And they kind of just take on significant salary guys who can be real rotation players for them as another team that really doesn't have too much draft capital moving forward. Granted, they would get some in this
Yeah,
transaction. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. This looks like one of those trades where everybody but the Lakers win in the immediate future, in the immediate aftermath. Maybe the Lakers reap the benefits of this a season or two down the line. But definitely this year, Lakers fans would have to kind of just sit around with their heads down. And then poor AD, man.
poor AD.
Poor AD.
Bro, this man's having like probably the best season of his career, and this man, if this ends up happening, is gonna lose out on freaking Braun, and not only that, the Lakers have to give up draft compensation. No, that's crazy. That
Yeah.
would be a crazy concept. But yeah, this is the trade we're talking about, man. This just the idea of seeing how both of these teams are gonna look after this trade, especially the Warriors basically giving up half their rotation. Yes, if you see Warriors basketball this year, they're freaking playing 10 deep. They're basically giving away half their rotation in this for a 40-year-old Braun. But man, let's do it for the numbers, man. Like this team might be the most watched team in NBA history.
Easily.
LeBron
And
and Steph, just
let's
on
be
name value
honest.
alone.
Let's be honest, TV. There is a real likelihood that the 2024-2025 season is secretly the LeBron James swan song season that we didn't know was going to be the case until probably closer to the All-Star break. I think it's going to really settle in closer to All-Star weekend. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Just based on the way this season has went, everything that's taken place over the last couple of months, including the recent drafting of Bronny James, who hasn't even really seen the floor for the main roster, all of the stuff in relation to the Lakers not being so good this season, LeBron James taking personal time from the team, which I don't think is necessarily anything negative, but I do think goes to tell you that like he's a guy that is kind of operating with this season being something where he's pacing himself. I think even JJ Redick mentioned that the rigors of the early season are kind of slowly taking a toll on LeBron James. So will he have a short burst of revitalization when he puts a Golden State Warriors uniform on playing next to Steph Curry and Draymond Green? Yes, I do. I also think that this season is the make or break season in terms of whether or not LeBron James hangs up his shoes or not. Like, I feel like if he's not playing competitive basketball this year, it will be the swan song of LeBron James.
I think we're getting the retirement tour next year. That's I think this year, if I realize, you know what, this might be not the end, but it's like basically the end, and they'll give us one retirement tour, kind of like a Kobe did for us. But besides that, yeah, we're at the tail. What we're basically saying is we're at the tail end of LeBron's career. We're like at the tail end. So yeah, that's
Question is just which California team will he be playing for when he tells us that it's time?
this trade would be crazy if it happened. But if I want to see LeBron and Steph Curry play on the same basketball court for a whole season, I'll take it. I will absolutely take that as a NBA fan overall. Jay, next trade though. We're going to your neck of the woods, man. Zach LaVine, we've been trying to find a trade partner for him for what, a year and a half now? Yeah, a year and a half. So your thoughts, especially your thoughts on this one, man. Zach LaVine in exchange to the Orlando Magic. We've been saying Orlando needs that other scorer. They need that 2 guard. Well, we have it in Zach LaVine. In exchange, KCP, Cole Anthony, Jed Howard, and a 2025 second round pick.
TV, literally 2 episodes ago, when we were talking about perfect landing spots for certain players, we talked about Zach LaVine, and this is the exact team I brought up. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We have inadvertently built the Orlando Magic up to this point as it is. Franz Wagner was supposed to be our pick. The revitalization of Wendell Carter, guess who he was drafted by? Us, right?
Yes.
Some of the draft capital that has really helped them maneuver over the last couple of seasons. Oh yeah, it came from the Vooch trade.
Yes.
Like, we have inadvertently helped build the Orlando Magic in their new rebuild post Nikola Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and those guys. Might as well just finish the job. Look, man, Bulls fans can vicariously live through Orlando Magic fans because every guy that they seem to have, we have some hand in one way or another. It feels like at least some of their better players that are really contributing for them. Let's just watch Zach LaVine thrive in another uniform. And I think that, like, if they can't get an Anthony Simons type at the point guard position, I think the best backup option would be a high volume 3-point shooter, can stretch the floor, also can put the ball on the deck, one of the best cutters in the league, one of the best backdoor cutters specifically in the league, one of the best finishers in the NBA still. I'm glazing my boy.
Yeah.
No, I'm glazing my boy because I want people to understand how good Zach LaVine is before he messes around and has to don another uniform. But, like, let's be real, man. Him in Orlando would be like one of the more solid fits. I know everybody wants to see him in like the Lakers uniform or like Golden State or something, but like Orlando unironically feels like a match made in heaven in terms of what they need and what Zach LaVine can provide, along with the fact that there seems to be like a secret under the table handshake deal between the Orlando Magic and the Chicago Bulls to like build the Orlando Magic into like a juggernaut over the course of the next couple of years.
Yeah. If I'm the Magic, 100% yes to this trade. They've been needing this Zach LaVine sort of level player for a while, and he's proven this year he still got it. So go after Zach LaVine, and especially just for a 2025 second round pick. Yes. If I'm the Bulls, hell no.
Right.
If I'm the
I
Bulls,
mean, KCP is probably like a KCP is, well, no,
he's
it's
another
really
flip
the
candidate.
2025 pick, right? I mean, the pick's really what we're trading. I mean, that's what we're really trading for in that
It's a
regard.
second round pick though, and I think what in this trade they would be like, oh, we drafted Jed Howard with the 10th overall pick a couple years ago. That's basically a first round pick. The Bulls do not go for actual draft capital. And Cole Anthony, I'm sorry, like he's gonna be like not, especially in a team with already like Kobe White on the team already. He's not gonna provide much at that guard position. I'm sorry.
TV, we only really got a second out that moved DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah,
Imagine that. We got Josh Giddey, who we have to pay for Alex Caruso. We got basically nothing, along with, I guess, what you could say a valuable second round pick for DeMar DeRozan. And you're telling me that in this exchange, we're going to get a newly signed Kentavious Caldwell Pope, who hasn't even really played like
he
ever.
hasn't
I
played
think he's
great this
shooting
year.
like 34% from three this year,
Yeah,
which is like very low for his standards. And a second round pick for Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball's on the trade block. Like, which, by the way, this is a completely separate tangent, but like, send Lonzo to Charlotte, man. Let's just get it done.
yeah.
Let's
Let's get
just
the
get
Ball
it done,
brothers
bro.
together. Let's get the Ball brothers
Come on,
together.
man.
But yeah, in terms of this trade, Bulls, hell no. If I'm the Magic, I am. If this trade is on the table, go for it right away.
Yeah.
Jay, we're gonna stick with the Bulls for the next one.
Hey, man, they're trying to blow us up.
Yeah, Vucci baby is gonna be on the move because we're gonna move him to Memphis. Memphis has been a big topic on this show today. Let's move him to
Yeah.
Memphis in exchange for Brandon Clark, John Conchar, and a top 10 protected first round pick in 2027. That's a trade. What do you think?
I mean, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is the perfect kind of guy to put at the 4 next to a guy like Vooch. Um, and I think Vooch really helps them because similar to what they wanted out of Zach Edey and similar to what they even were looking for from Steven Adams once upon a time is we know Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a high level rebounder. We know Nikola Vucevic brings
He's a high level rebounder.
on both sides because one thing that's very underrated about him is he's very active on the offensive glass as well, which is something that's very beneficial to a team like Memphis, who benefited a ton from offensive rebounding back when they had Steven Adams. That was one of the things that helped them be so dangerous a couple seasons ago was the fact that they created extra possessions because Steven Adams was like far and away the best offensive rebounder in the league, and it like almost felt like it wasn't close. I think this would be big for them because I think the main thing too is that like their center depth is their other biggest question outside of the wing position, really. You know what I mean? And especially for a team that's second in the Western Conference right now, does still have real championship aspirations and has the kind of capital to go after somebody to help them win now. If they weren't going after a wing like a Jimmy Butler, like a Brandon Ingram, putting another high level big on the floor that can finish around the rim, can be a real like dump off guy in the dunker spot for Ja Morant in tight spots, can be a high level rebounder like I mentioned next to a Jaren Jackson Jr. Can step out for the 3-point line a little bit. We've seen him. My boy's shooting 37% from beyond the arc this year. For some godforsaken reason, he decided this was the season he wanted to be a sniper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that Memphis would be getting a steal in this trade. The thing that I hate about it is again, what the hell is a top 10 protected first round pick in 2027?
Here's the thing. I think that you weren't gonna get much for Vuce. I mean, like last year he was a negative asset. If you can get at least even one, I think that's a W for the Bulls at this point.
Fair. I mean, this is peak value at this point. The question is just going to be whether or not I feel like the biggest thing is after seeing what happened with Alex Caruso, I think every team is going to try their absolute hardest to fleece us because of the fact that we clearly have much lower standards than most expect us to have. There was reports before Alex Caruso truly hit the market that teams were willing to give 2 first round picks for him. We ended up with a 1-for-1 Josh Giddey trade that involves a player in Josh Giddey who was played out of the rotation in the postseason, and you have to pay him. But the opportunity to get 2 first round picks was on the table earlier that season, and that's what we passed up. We just talked about Zach LaVine earlier, potentially only really getting a second round pick as real value for him. I mentioned DeMar DeRozan earlier. I mean, this would be one of the worst fire sales in NBA history if this is the kind of stuff we would walk away from. If you tell me we drop off Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and then we will barely get any real assets for Lonzo Ball, who kind of isn't, is damaged goods as well
You
as a guy
damage
who
good,
hasn't been able to stay in the lineup as well. Like that would be like you have to remember those 5 guys started on our team when we made the postseason a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And we would have literally nothing to show for it when the fire sale is done. That is sick.
That season was probably the worst thing to happen to the Bulls because it gave this team hope that this team was more than it actually was.
No, for real, bro.
No.
I was so hyped that year. And
They were hella fun to watch. They were hella
hey,
fun
man,
to watch.
I didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. It was definitely temporary bliss because we are facing the music for it now.
Oh, bro. I mean, like, you what's funny is you see what the Jazz can get for a disgruntled Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert combo, and see the freaking like place they're in, which they're in a great position for a rebuilding team. And then you see the Bulls who are trading their their starting 5 for nickels on a dime. It's tough out here for the Bulls. Jay, I'm gonna take you out of this because it's kind of sad one to talking about this right now. Let's go back to New Orleans because I feel like again another team that's been a big talking point on this pod. Yeah. Let's move Brandon Ingram out there, and according to this article, Let's make him a Super Six man because why the hell not? Brandon Ingram to the Thunder. This is not a 2K trade. Brandon Ingram to the Thunder for
Dude.
Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Usman Jang, and a top 5 protected pick in 2027 via the Denver Nuggets. Jay, quick thoughts?
This team will be cracked, dude. Like, this team is already #1 team in the Western Conference. They have one of the best developmental programs in the entire NBA, and they would be able to grab onto a guy in Brandon Ingram and help him play real system basketball. If he was a super six man, you could allow him to play that point forward style that he tends to thrive in. It's not a coincidence that every single time Zion Williamson's out of the lineup, Brandon Ingram turns into like a superstar overnight. Like, it's not a surprise that when Zion Williamson is out of the lineup, all of a sudden Brandon Ingram looks like the second coming of Paul Pierce or something in the mid range, as a dude who just seems to be able to channel offense from out of nowhere, because he just tends to play with a lot more freedom when he knows he can be on ball at that level. And for the Oklahoma City Thunder, as part of the second unit, where let's be honest, their second unit does still really need a primary scorer. Like, they tend to stagger minutes where Shea plays with the bench or Jalen Williams will play with the bench. But in terms of having like a go-to guy outside of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, you can make an argument. I think Jalen Williams is a better overall player than Brandon Ingram right now. But I think in terms of go get you a bucket, I think I still would trust Brandon Ingram more than Jalen Williams to run my second unit in terms of being able to create offense, not only for himself, but for others. He's a high level passer. He can create off the dribble, and he's a mid range demon. And I think with the kind of spacing that the Oklahoma City Thunder have, especially when Chet Holmgren comes back. Oh my goodness. Like, I mean, he's a kid in the candy store in terms of the way he's going to be able to operate if he's on second. And I mean, let's be real. Automatic six man of the year? I mean, like, low key?
Yeah, probably. I don't know, man. Like, I told you this off pod. I've been just getting attached to this Thunder team because they're always on TV, like, and I'm watching them play. I'm a huge fan of Aaron Wiggins, huge fan of Lou Dort, obviously being a Canadian dude as well.
Yeah.
It would be so to see him go, especially because I feel like Lou Dort is kind of that Tony Allen of the team, being the heart and soul of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But, thinking this through, Brandon Ingram on the team gives him the flexibility to play big, gives him the flexibility to play small, because you can move Chet Holmgren to the 4, play J-Dub, play Brandon Ingram, Caruso, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That is a filthy lineup. And that's not even without Isaiah Hartenstein, who's going to be. But again, this is a massive rental, and you're giving away two guys who not only are part. Obviously, they're playing a bunch of players this year, but they were also key cogs to your team last year. If you're really serious about this year, though, Brandon Ingram would be fine. But again, this is the ultimate rental. I would be weary, but I think OKC does potentially accept this. Potentially,
I think the rental aspect of it is the most important thing, because they do have the ability to pay him. It just gets really dicey because their books down the line, they start to get a lot more muddy when you talk about Chet Holmgren down the pipeline, Jalen Williams down the pipeline. Like, they can only get away with some of these boosted contracts. We were talking about Isaiah Hartenstein off pod, where they were able to kind of give him this, like, like this super spaced out deal, considering the fact that, like, for a 2-year pickup, they were able to kind of raise his price because of the financial flexibility they have. They're only going to have that financial flexibility for only a little bit longer before their roster starts to get a little bit expensive. They're going to have a similar situation to what they had back when they had to make a decision on James Harden versus Serge Ibaka. Hopefully they have better judgment this go around compared to last time in terms of what they decide to do in that regard. But I think more than anything, the real question that I have for you is not necessarily about the rental aspect. It's about, what do you think Oklahoma City Thunder fans and the front office would be more gravitated towards? This kind of acquisition of Brandon Ingram, or TV, do you think it would be better to have settled on this Brandon Ingram trade, or have went harder this past offseason before Lauri Markkanen signed his extension, to go after him? Because see, the situations are relatively the same. Some at the end of the day, whether it was Laurie or it was Brandon Ingram, if somebody traded for them, specifically, let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder in this regard, you were going to have to pay him. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at this roster and you're thinking about that big consolidation trade or that big move to go get like a wing four guy for Oklahoma City Thunder, for the Oklahoma City Thunder to really round out their roster, would you have rather them trade for Laurie Markkinen this past offseason? Or do you think that this Brandon Ingram trade is a better consolation prize?
I think I would feel the same about both. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
At this
okay,
moment, yeah, I
really?
feel the same. Just because, I mean, again, you're gonna have to play Laurie. You already, I mean, you put the money into Isaiah Hartenstein. I think they made this whole thing knowing that they want to keep this team together either way. So I don't think they wanted to really like make a big deal either way. Like I say that they're gonna make this deal. Like we said that this deal, we're talking about this deal here. But are they actually gonna pull it off? I don't think OKC pulls it off. Maybe they might have had to give more draft compensation to the Jazz, which I think which would be a lot less than what they're giving here for Brandon Ingram, the
Uh,
top 10 protected pick in 27-27 from the Nuggets from all teams for goodness sake. So
right.
like I mean they really want to add the depth to it, sure, but at the same time we've seen this team perform this year. They might freaking win the NBA Cup for all we know. Like this team is already feels like they are a legitimate title contender, and they haven't done anything. They haven't traded any of these picks,
Yeah.
which is kind of insane. So if they really want to mess that up at the end of the day, who knows? But we're gonna have to wait and see. But
Yeah.
yeah, one more trade to talk about though, Jay. We have Jimmy Butler. He's back as a topic here. Now let's put him to the freaking Denver Nuggets. Yeah, let's put him to Denver. And they have no first round picks, so they had to really work this thing out. Jimmy Butler and Pell Larson for MPJ, Zeke Naji, Dario Saric, and 3 first round pick swaps. Quick thoughts?
They need help, and I get that part.
The
And
no, they have no tradable first round picks. They have one tradable second. This
there
this
you
this
go,
Nuggets
TV.
team, bro.
Yeah. This feels like one of those trades where if you just this feels like one of those trades that you make to like desperately get Nikola Jokic help, and you want to do it by any means necessary that also hurts teams like the Golden State Warriors of the world, who like are much more like rumored around a guy like Jimmy Butler. I think the other thing too is that like I think they're overvaluing Michael Porter Jr. a little bit in this trade. I think maybe that's just because his contract is a little nastier. Especially when you're factoring in that Jimmy Butler's an expiring.
She's.
Um,
I think yeah. No, I think that if anything, Michael Porter Jr. should not be a part of this trade. I feel like
yeah,
I feel like he's been their second best player this year.
I
Like it.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I
He's
think
been.
the other part too is they mentioned in the article, they mentioned him being 26, 9 years younger than Jimmy Butler. He's a young asset, but do we think that if you put him in Miami, he's just going to like bypass all of the back issues and things that he's dealt with throughout his career and revert back to the guy we saw back in Missouri or back in high school at Nathan Hale when he was considered the top prospect in the country, putting the ball on the floor looking like a second coming of Kevin Durant? If that's the guy Miami is getting, you do this in a heartbeat because you don't even give a dang about Denver's picks. You're getting a high level dude. You're getting a high level Carmelo Anthony Durant light kind of dude at 26 years old to build next to a Tyler Hero and a Bam Adebayo. But I just don't think that's the kind of Michael Porter Jr. they're getting. And so I feel like that makes this trade a lot harder. And then from Denver's perspective, he has been their second best player in a role that he fits very well next to Nikola Jokic. But can he play the same role he's playing right now on a Miami Heat team that doesn't have the kind of distributor that Nikola Jokic is, that doesn't have the same kind of spacing? Well, I can't say Denver has a ton of spacing,
Yeah.
right? But like they have a ton of guys who are threats as perimeter players. You have to be weary of Russell Westbrook as a driver. You have to be weary of Christian Brown as a driver. You have to be weary of Jamal Murray as both an off the dribble guy and as a 3-point shooter, right? Like you have to be weary of Nikola Jokic, who apparently wants to be a knockdown 3-point shooter this year.
Yeah.
that's not the same thing for a Miami Heat team. So how does Michael Porter Jr. fit if he's playing this kind of role on Miami as opposed to playing it on Denver?
Sure.
I think you're just expecting a lot more out of Michael Porter Jr. as as like a building block piece as Miami if you actually feel comfortable trading it for Jimmy, which is why I feel like this isn't gonna happen. I don't feel like this is as good of a trade as it might seem with all those picks thrown in.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do it because I don't think that like he's just gonna revert back to his high ceiling that we saw again earlier on in his career. But
Nah.
but I do think they'll do this just because we're getting someone like Michael Porter Jr. for Jimmy Butler who's on an expiring contract. I'd rather take that chance.
True.
I'd rather get this than let him walk for nothing. So getting someone
True.
like Michael Porter Jr. at least longer term deal. It's not gonna break the bank in terms of the Miami Heat. I know you just paid Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo is the max contract. Having Michael Porter Jr. is not gonna break your bank, and you get a first what? You get like a few pick swaps. With the way Denver's going and like the way they're kind of already messing up this like the way that they're building this team, they might be a freaking mess by 2030. Who knows? So these pick
Good
swaps could be
point.
valuable. That's all
Good
I'm saying.
point.
But I've been saying I think Miami does do it. Do I think that the Nuggets do this, especially because of how well MPJ plays with Jokic and stuff like that? Who knows? But they're gonna have to make a move somewhere. I don't think that they're gonna be able to get Jimmy though because they just have no assets.
Yeah, this is the type of trade that you see where the talent definitely is raised in Denver, but this also shows that the philosophy is committing all the way to spacing be damned.
Yes,
Because if they get Jimmy Butler and they already have Russell Westbrook
Aaron
and
Gordon.
Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray have best basketball so far this season. Even though, as you guys remember from last episode, I'm keeping my stock in Jamal Murray, but for right now, this team negative spacing to be nice, maybe worse than that if we wanted to be rude. It definitely would get only worse if Jimmy Butler is replacing Michael Porter Jr., who probably is their best floor spacer on the entire team.
100%, man. It's gonna be interesting because like there's very few teams that could probably trade for Jimmy. This works technically, but are freaking the Nuggets gonna throw the entire kitchen sink at this? Who knows? It's gonna be interesting to see what moves they have to make because they do need to make a move bad. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think of these trades. Whether you agree or disagree, do you think they're gonna happen? Do you think that these trades are kind of absurd? Because let's be honest, we talked about it here. Some of these trades are kind of absurd.
Yeah.
But let us know what you guys think down below. And of course, find the places for the guys that we talked about earlier. Jay, we're gonna move on to the next topic. We're gonna move away from trades, and we're gonna do the NBA draft now.
Yeah.
And this draft is gonna be very interesting
Yeah.
because again, we're used to putting on the GM hat, we're used to putting the coach hat on. We're gonna put on the commissioner's cap because, as you know, NBA Christmas Day is next week, and there's 5 games on the schedule. Some really good games. I'm excited to see these games when they come on Christmas Day. But Jay, why not us make a Christmas Day schedule? What we're gonna do with this is just go back and forth, no serpentine style. But we have the 5 time slots. We have the first game. We have the matinee game. We have the 2:30 game, 5 o'clock, 7:30, and 10 o'clock games. And we're gonna try and fill out this Christmas Day roster using teams in the league. And we're gonna see who gets to build the best Christmas Day schedule. Jay, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, when TV brought this to me, I got hyped because when we really started to break down some of the caveats of putting this together, not only do you have to be really strategic about what you think the fans would want to see, but considering storylines within the league itself is going to be really important. But TV also threw out a really interesting caveat that I didn't consider as much until right before we kind of like put the stamp on this, which is time zones are going to matter too because you don't want your double Western Conference teams playing at 9 a.m. for example, is what TV had kind of mentioned. Like if they're playing in that time zone, which for Eastern time zone would be like 9 o'clock for us. I mean, would be like 12 o'clock for us. You don't want a 9 a.m. game with some of our like West Coast squads. So that's another little element that you have to consider in terms of being able to have the perfect Christmas Day slot where all the games that are on you genuinely want to watch.
100%. And you also got to keep in mind, remember, this is Christmas Day. You have a bunch of stuff going on. When are you going to actually have time to put
Yeah.
these to watch these games? So you want to have the best game in the primetime slot. Maybe you want to start off the day with an absolute banger. Again, knowing making a good schedule counts. Is anyone gonna be watching the 10 o'clock game, especially after a long day of eating? Who knows? Is anyone
Right.
gonna be really like watching at 2:30 just because that's when you're spending time with the fam? I mean, like it's gonna be it depends on how you spend your Christmas, but yeah,
Right.
you have to really think about this type of stuff. But Jay, I'm gonna give you the first pick. What time slot are you gonna? What game you want to put in? What time slot are you gonna put it at?
Okay. So I'm gonna start in the middle. We're gonna start in the very middle at 5 o'clock. Oh,
Okay.
another caveat we did not mention in the making of the and all the breakdown stuff. Once a team is chosen within their matchups, we cannot repeat teams.
Yes.
So after two teams are drafted for a matchup, those teams are officially off the board. I'm gonna go with 5 o'clock. Give me the good old rivalry we just keep going back to. Luca being the papa that he is, Dallas Mavericks take on the Phoenix Suns at 5 o'clock.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, like maybe like the casual NBA fan won't know the storyline, but you're gonna want to have like, especially the people who are like who's like gonna be dedicated to watching this. People are gonna know about Luca and the Suns history, man. I like that pickup, and of course, very good matchup. You got KD playing, you got D-Bug, Beal. Really like that. Really like that.
Yeah.
All right, my first day, my first game. Jay, I'm gonna go with the 12 o'clock. I want to start this game off this day off with a bang.
Okay.
Trae Young just got one up on the New York. New York wants to get one back. Let's run it back. Let's run it back on
Fact.
Christmas. Trae Young and MSG taking on the New York Knicks. Look, man, it's always fireworks whenever he's over there, and you want to get people talking right away at the start of the day. So give me Trae Young versus the Knicks.
Yeah, man. I think the Knicks want their get back bad, and I think also just like starting with MSG is kind of like just a perfect way to kind of like get things going in terms of an NBA Christmas slate. It kind of almost feels like they have to be one of the first games in the mix if they're
Yeah,
going to be on the slate. So I definitely agree with putting New York in the mix. And Atlanta, shout out to them, man. They just
they've
know
been good
what
this year too. So they haven't been a pushover this year.
yeah, man, we were a little worried about them when they kind of decided to move off of DeJounte. We thought there was a fire sale coming, especially with the Trae Young rumors really picking up steam just barely before the season started. But things have calmed down. Dyson Daniels is playing up to way beyond what we thought his trade value was, given the way that exchange took place. And Jalen Johnson is becoming a real young superstar before our very eyes. Gotta love that part of it too.
Yeah.
I am going to start with I'm going to go to 12 o'clock and I'm going to pick an Eastern Conference matchup of my own as well. And I want to run back a game that we've seen once and can be a matchup that we kind of have to keep tabs on all the way through the entirety of the regular season and up through the postseason as well. Uh Give me top two seeds in the East. Give me Cavaliers versus Boston again.
I mean, look, man, they had that game where like Boston beat the winning streak, and then Cavs got their get back. Best settled thing. I liked it. I like it. I like that idea. And what time slot do you have that at?
That's gonna be my 12 o'clock. We're gonna start with that slate. We're gonna start with
Fireworks right
that being the
away.
way we kick off the day.
Fireworks, fireworks. You love to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Looking through these matchups, you know what? I'm going to go with my primetime game, Jay. We got 7:30. You remember, if you're celebrating for Christmas with the fam, this is maybe you don't have as much of big NBA fans as yourself, or like me or Jay or stuff like that. You need to you need people here that people know, people that are like recognizable names that will have fireworks in the game if the game gets close.
Yeah.
Let's just run it back. This is for the guys who've been following the NBA for years now. People are gonna want to reminisce about the Cavs versus Warriors. We're gonna have LeBron versus Steph again. Warriors
Yeah.
versus Lakers.
Yeah. I feel.
7:30. These guys, a bit older. They're still amazing. There's still lots of storylines between these two. We talked about how they potentially want to play with each other. As long as those two guys are on the court, your drunk uncle over there will still know what the heck is going on because they know about all that stuff. Give me Warriors versus Lakers at 7:30.
Man, taking the Lakers and the Warriors off the board is tough. That is tough. Oh man. But you said something that was really interesting that I think is kind of something worth considering, which is that like that 7:30 slot is gonna be like a you gotta know the names. You
Yeah.
gotta know the names.
Because this is like even this is probably the time where the casual fan wants to tune in as well. Probably the best time for them during this, at least during Christmas Day.
Yeah, man. And that's where things get really interesting because I feel like we've taken a lot of the like real notable names off the list. But you know the team, you know the this is the matchup that I'm gonna throw out here. I'm gonna put this at the 7:30 slot. Let's do a rematch of one of the the weirder series we've seen in recent memory. Let's do Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves
Yeah.
taking on who might mess around and win another MVP, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets.
I like that. I like that matchup. That's a really good matchup. Yeah. I like that. They've had some moments in that series as well. They've had some moments. You know that freaking like Jokic and Gobert matchup is always going to be interesting. Yeah, I like that matchup for sure. It's a good one. All right, that's your third one. That's your 7:30 slot, right?
Yeah, so that's gonna
All
be my
right.
7:30 slot.
All right. Next matchup for me. I think where I want to go next. Do I want to assume Kawhi's healthy? That's the issue.
That's a it. I considered it too. I think we consider the same thing. We consider the same thing.
That's going to be tough. All right. You know what? Let's run back a classic rivalry of the 2020s where you have these two East teams. I'll put this at my 5 o'clock slot. I'll put this at my 5 o'clock slot.
Okay.
Two East teams. One has gone to better the other at some point, but of course the other team has got to get back. They've had a back and forth relationship, but I think there's still enough, names on the court. There's a big time city there as
Hmm.
well. Give me Milwaukee, Miami. Give me Milwaukee, Miami.
Yeah.
You got a big name there in Giannis. Miami obviously still has their core guys from those finals runs, and they've gone each other on like in certain years. Let's have them in another matchup here.
Dang, taking Milwaukee off the board, that's tough because I definitely had them kind of factored in.
No, you don't understand. If you didn't take Denver, I wanted to do freaking the two MVP matchups like between like Giannis and Jokic. I thought that would
Oh
be
yeah.
freaking fireworks.
Oh dang, I kind of missed that opportunity,
Yeah,
huh? I didn't think of cross conference matchups too often. That might be something I might need to consider for one of these last picks.
yeah,
I did not. Well, granted, we took a lot of the like better teams in the Eastern Conference at this point.
yeah,
I think the only team outside of the top eight, the only there's two teams we haven't taken outside of the top eight. That's Magic and the Magic and the Pacers,
yeah.
which excuse me, I wouldn't say.
Hmm.
Ooh, see, the thing is, we already know Chet Holmgren isn't going to be healthy by Christmas. Are we assuming health, or this is given
This
the actual circumstances going into
circumstances
next
of the
week?
season, unfortunately.
Okay. Um, I still just think there's no like I'm gonna put this as my last game of the night, and it's gonna be more of like the diehard fan kind of intrigue. Yeah, let's do it because I feel like they deserve to play. I feel like they deserve to play on Christmas. Give me the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shea as
Yeah.
like one of the marquee names, and the other guy that you bring to the table to keep somebody up that late at night. Let's have them play the San Antonio Spurs with Wemby.
Wow. I wasn't thinking Wemby. I was thinking a different team, but I do like that matchup. I do like that matchup. Yeah, I mean, if you want to stay up, you're gonna see freaking Wemby versus Shea. Yeah, that's a good matchup. I like that. I like that matchup. Very nice matchup for 10 o'clock. My next one. I don't want to keep going like interconference matchups. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah, I want to do something else. It's just now that we've gotten to our last couple of teams,
yeah,
it's a little iffy because the teams that are left over don't really have beef like that.
yeah. I might do it in my final pick, but I won't do it here. I'm. You're talking about a sickle matchup. This matchup here is for the NBA sickles if you want to watch. If you want to stay up, because these teams have been elite this season, but do they have the biggest names? No, but this could be a potential second round series matchup.
Okay.
10 o'clock. Give me the Grizzlies taking on the Rockets. The Grizzlies versus
Dang.
Rockets. You just want to see some fun basketball out there. You got the Rockets who have been like freaking streaky right now. You got your international star there in Şengün. John Moran is always going to bring eyeballs to the table. Let's end the day strong with a freaking Grizzlies versus Rockets matchup.
Well, I guess the pool is kind of tough to pull from at this point, right? Because now we're pretty much at like the bottom of the conferences, give or take a team or two.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with the last real like dynamic I can think
I love how
of.
we both left 2:30 to last because this is the game no one will be watching.
And that's exactly why, TV, my 2:30 matchup will be the Tyrese Halliburton Bowl. Indiana Pacers versus the
I
Sacramento
like
Kings.
that. I like that. Let's do it. Let's run it back. Tyrese versus De'Aaron. The
Yes,
freaking
sir.
bonus Halliburton trade. I like it. I like it.
Come on, man.
Oh, that's a good matchup. You know what?
Super
I-
nasty 2:30 game. But look,
Yo,
bro.
freaking for the sickos, does anyone want to do a freaking like reminder of the freaking Halliburton trade? Let's put that for a 2:30 showcase. Let's do it. Oh,
Jeez.
that's crazy. I like that. See, here's the thing. I would have put Orlando in the mix, but no Franz, no Powell probably until
Right.
after. Like, it just, I'm not going to put him in Christmas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But there's one guy that could potentially still be able to play on Christmas. His team might be ass right now, but I'm gonna have him here. It's just who to match him up with.
Yeah.
That is the question, isn't it? I mean,
He's
like,
definitely to the bottom of the barrel. Your
we're at
last
the
pick
bottom
is
of
gonna
the
be a
barrel.
deep
We're at the
cut.
bottom of
Like,
the barrel here. You know what? This just realized that this is a tough choice here. It's like, yeah, OKC, yeah, you took OKC. Freaking Memphis is gone. Rockets are gone. You have Dallas versus Phoenix, which is a damn good matchup. The Nuggets are off the table too, right?
yeah,
You-
the Nuggets are off the table too. Because I got
off
them
the
versus
ta-
the Timberwolves.
yeah, that difference the Timberwolves. Damn. And then I decided to go freaking Warriors Lakers because let's do it for the freaking let's do it. Oh my god.
TV. The funny part is there's only one right answer. Let's just see. Let's see if let's see if you do it. There's only one right answer, especially given the podcast. There's only one right answer left.
Given the I'm not doing that on Christmas. I'm not doing
TV,
that.
there's only so many teams to pick from, bro.
Oh, you know what? Give me damn.
Come
This
on,
is
man. International fandom plus
you know
the most well liked
you know what
organization in
I'm,
all of the entire universe.
you know what? Screw this. I have a matchup, and I am praying to God that Kawhi Leonard's healthy for this.
Okay.
Give me Kawhi versus the 76ers again, man. Let him break it. Let him
Oh Lord, that
break
is
the parts.
rude. That is rude. Kawhi Leonard comes back just in time to ruin Christmas for Philly.
Ruin
That's messed
for
up.
ruin Christmas for Embiid. Ruin Christmas for Nick Nurse. He's gonna
Oh
for Kyle
man,
Lowry, and he's gonna ruin Christmas for all of them.
that's the
Give me
Grinch for
76ers.
real. That's
76ers
the
versus
Grinch for real, dude.
yeah. No.
Oh.
Hey.
For y'all didn't know the only right answer was Chicago versus Toronto,
No,
man.
F
That was the right answer.
this is for us. I'm not doing that to the rest of the world.
Oh man.
Especially because
Oh
Scotty
man.
probably is not even playing at all either.
True.
So that's gonna be
Shoot,
tough.
Zach's not even playing tonight. I didn't realize he was actually going to be out, but he's not playing tonight against you guys either. So we'll see how that goes. We got double points on you, so we got to see how that
That's
goes.
hilarious. But yeah, that's our schedules, man. I want to hear your Christmas Day schedule. How's yours looking like?
Oh man. Okay, so my NBA Christmas Day
Yeah,
schedule for the 2024 season in draft format. Just so y'all know, so we was picking this one back and forth. The 12 o'clock slate, we're going to start the day off with the Boston Celtics taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then at 2:30, we got the Tyrese Halliburton Bowl of Indiana Pacers taking on the Sacramento Kings. At 5 o'clock, we got a rematch of a postseason series that we just continue to replay over and over. Dallas Mavericks taking on the Phoenix Suns. Then we've got one of the more interesting back and forth of the past postseason at 7:30. Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Denver Nuggets. And to close the night off at 10 o'clock, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs.
That's a damn good schedule. That's something I'm definitely going to try to at least catch 3 of those games that night. So I'm going to try to catch 3 of those for sure. But yeah, those are some good games for sure. For that you have there. For myself, yo man, we got to start off the day at MSG. Let's have Trae Young run it back. See if the Knicks can get their get back. Trae Young versus the Knicks. That's always going to be fireworks to start off the day. Next up, you know what? This actually makes more sense for me too. The NBA wants to show off the Intuit Dome. They want to show off the new stadium. Let's have it play right over there. 76ers taking on the Clippers. Let's see if Kawhi can break the hearts of Embiid again. If he could even his former his former coworkers and Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry. Let's see if he can break their hearts as well. At 5 o'clock, let's go with a matchup that's been basically in our face over the past few years. Bucks versus Heat. They got a little back and forth going on, so I think it's gonna be a good matchup. Then we got Lakers versus Warriors. This is the matchup for everyone, man. LeBron versus Steph. Huge markets in this one. You love to see it. Then for the sickos, we're gonna end the night off. Grizzlies versus Rockets, the 2 versus the 3 seed. These guys have been awesome. Let's let them end the night. How are you feeling about your schedule?
I feel pretty good about mine. I think you have a better name value to your list than mine. I think from a storyline perspective, I have a pretty interesting slate. I think from a star power perspective, though, you might have me beat. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, LeBron, Steph, Jimmy, Giannis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy, Giannis, LeBron, Steph alone might beat most of the games I got right here. I
Yeah.
mean, I think my best game in terms of marquee names, I think you can make the argument that
Jokic and Ant is going to be pretty good.
I think Dallas Phoenix will probably be the most name value game just because you got Luka, Kyrie, Devin Booker,
KD.
Durant, Bradley Beal if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Like I think from a name value, that's probably my best game if we're just talking star power.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, these are two good. These are two good
slate.
schedules, though. These are 2 good schedules. Then two good schedules to definitely play. Let us know what you guys think down below. Which slate of games would you rather watch? I guess that's the way to put it.
Right.
Which slate of games would you rather watch? Would you rather watch my 5 games that we have on Christmas, or would you rather watch Jay's? Two definitely interesting matches. Let us know what you guys think down below. Jay, it is time for the final segment of this show, and it is time for the NBA quiz. And because the NBA Cup is coming to a close tomorrow, where we have the OKC Thunder taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Jay, we've had two seasons of this NBA Cup. Name me the top 10 most points in a single NBA Cup run from these past 2 seasons. So I'm introducing the player, and I'm gonna tell you if they made the top 10 for most points in a NBA Cup run.
Okay, so that's over the course of
So remember,
both seasons or just like
for one
single
season, a single season run.
Okay.
So you have to think about players that maybe have gone deeper into the NBA Cup. Some guys obviously you want to get some of the best scores in the league, but those are some things to keep in mind.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, well, we have to think about players that went deeper first. So last year was Indiana, Los Angeles. So let's say LeBron.
LeBron's number 3. He had 184.5 points during that NBA Cup run.
Okay. This was like demon mode Tyrese Halliburton still at the time.
He's at number 2, 187 points.
I don't know if he's been this good in NBA Cup games specifically. But I know Giannis has really played himself into like NBA stature this year.
Is he actually his run? So here's the thing. So there's 10. I'm technically doing top 11 because there's one guy who doubles on this list. So I have 10 different names, but there's one guy that doubles on this list. It is Giannis. He had 170.4 points last year, which is number 4, and he has
Uh,
157 points this year so far, and he's going into
ah,
the finals. So he's double. It's technically top 11, but yeah, he's twice on this list.
okay. Um, Anthony Davis from that same Lakers team.
Number 6 on this list at 163.
Okay.
So you're missing number 1. So you said just Giannis, right? Yeah, you said just Giannis and AD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Giannis, AD, Braun,
And Tyrese.
and
Yeah.
Tyrese.
So yeah, so you got number 1 left, number 5, number 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay.
Actually,
I gotta really remember the. I gotta really remember. Well, okay, I know this year OKC's in it, so Shea probably has to be in there somewhere.
he's at number 1 at
Oh,
193.
all right, makes sense. Makes sense. Um,
Might be another guy
huh.
on that freaking Bucks team. Interesting.
Interesting. How good has Dame been in cup games this year?
So, okay. Okay, I'm gonna make this a top 12 now because Dame is also someone else who doubles on this list.
Oh,
He
okay.
he has 172 points last year in his NBA Cup run, and this year 141, which is number 9. So technically a
Uh-huh.
top 12, but yeah, he's doubles on this list.
Interesting. Okay.
You basically got the top 7, and you also got 9. So you're missing number 8, number 10, 11, 12.
8, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Let's think. Let's think. Let's think.
You can remember the semifinal matchups too. I mean, those are still pretty deep runs in the NBA Cup.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm trying to make sure I remember like where everybody kind of was slated at. Um, maybe like Jalen Brunson, maybe.
Number 12 on this list at
Oh,
137.
just barely cracks. Okay, okay. So we're a little too close. Got to
So yeah,
aim a
now you're
little bit
missing.
higher.
Yeah, so 8, 10, 11. That's what you're missing.
All right. Let's
All of
think.
these, this all happened. Yeah, all of these runs happened last year.
All of the leftover runs happened last year.
Yeah,
Okay, noted. Okay.
yeah, 23, 24. Yeah, yeah, okay.
D book.
Not D-Book. I think he's lower on this list because he might have been injured a little bit.
Okay, Kevin Durant.
Number 11 at
Okay,
138.
a little bit healthier. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Who else who else was like in the mix last year? Um, wasn't like New Orleans in there? I think New Orleans was in. Is Brandon Ingram on the list?
Number 8 at
Oh
146. I was
wow.
gonna say, like, the Pelicans showed us a little bit again, a little
Yeah,
bit of that glimmer of hope last year.
yeah. That I remember. I think we had a podcast around the fact that like they were kind of like killing, and we were like, wait a minute, is this the start? Is this the start or something? Because like they were
Yep.
putting it together early, then things kind of teetered off, and then they kind of shot back up towards the back half of the season, and then it got a little sketchy again, obviously around playing tournament time.
Yeah. So yeah, you're just
Who
missing number
else
10.
was on
Yeah, you're
this?
just missing number 10. That's it.
Who else was in the NBA Cup last year that like was indecent?
I'm trying to remember, like, if
I
this
don't
team.
even remember the matchups last year like that. I
I
remember
know.
New Orleans, but that's just because of the pod.
Okay, so this team, so the Pelicans made to the semifinals last year. I do remember that. The
Okay.
semifinals of the NBA Cup. The team that this guy's on made to the quarterfinals, but they lost to the Pelicans.
They lost to okay, so now I gotta think of who played the Pelicans. Who played the Pelicans? Who played the Pelicans? Who played the Pelicans? Oh man. Okay, wait. This is like a super random question. Was last year the year that De'Aaron Fox won clutch player of the year?
I think so. Yeah,
Is it De'Aaron?
it is De'Aaron Fox.
Let me double
He's
check.
at.
I'm gonna double check that on the pod while we're doing this. But go
I
ahead.
think. I think it was. It. I'm pretty sure.
2022, 2023.
Also, it's a year after then. So who was last?
Huh. Okay, let me.
Was it,
Oh, it was Steph last year.
yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I remember.
I mean, they're the only two clutch players of the year, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's
because
him and
yeah,
Steph.
they're the no, that's right, that's right. Because it was those two, and we said if the award came out the year before,
It was
De'Aaron
DeMar.
was the first ever winner for it.
Yeah.
I remember the graphic because isn't De'Aaron Fox? He's like signed to the Curry brand.
Yeah.
I think. And then they said, I think there was a graphic I saw that said that like, basically the two Curry brand guys are the like the two, clutch
Yeah.
player of the year so far. And I remember we made a joke on pod that if the clutch player of the year came out the year before De'Aaron won it, DeMar would have won it hands down.
Yeah.
And I
Unanimous.
think I just looked at the chart. It said DeMar DeRozan lost by 11 first place votes last year to Steph Curry. Okay. So I don't know why I remember De'Aaron Fox, but I remember him being in like the clutch player of the year conversation. One of the, I guess last year wasn't the one, but
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
think the
NBA
kid,
Cup. I mean, he still played big in that. He still played big that run. But yeah,
yeah.
that's the list of the top 10 players with the most points in an NBA Cup run. Another one's about to conclude tomorrow. Should be a really good game. Let us know down below what other quizzes you want to see. If there's any like potentially Christmas related ones, you can we might do that next week as well. But yeah, that should be. It was another great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Jay, what do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Dude, TV's in his bag. I always try my best to give him his flowers on this podcast as much as humanly possible. TV came up with the most interesting trade. I mean, the most interesting draft I think we've done so far this season, which is kind of hilarious to say because I feel like I say that every single week. He kind of brings something different every single time we do this, and that kind of goes to show you how unique this content can really get. And we're gonna kind of just keep pushing the envelope on that. I know that people are a little bit down on the NBA right now. I know that the NBA is also not making it very easy with the fact that, like, from a viewership standpoint, it feels like NBA games are on like every single app imaginable, and we all financially can only kind of, afford but so many streaming services. Um, but stick with us, man. Stick with us, man. I promise you, the NBA season going into the new year is going to pick up. The storylines are going to only further push the season forward. The NBA trade deadline, I think this is going to be a much more interesting trade deadline than people are going to give it credit. And I also just genuinely believe that the parity around the league this season is being a little underrated. I understand that the viewership aspect is down, but I don't think it's because of the storylines of the NBA. I think it genuinely just has more to do with the business side of basketball. If we're talking about the on the court production, I personally, TV would say I think this is one of the more fun seasons to watch in recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I have grown very attached to certain players that are not superstar players, and I've become very attached to teams that maybe we didn't consider coming into the season that have really kind of given me a different perspective on the landscape of the league this year. So I'm really excited to continue to, cover the rest of this season. And I mean, look, man, we're gonna close the year out strong and then bring even greater content in next year. So just be prepared for some heat.
Yeah, a lot of great games going on. Of course, we got Christmas coming up, so we're going to be locked into the actual Christmas Day matchups as well
Yeah.
this year. We have one more episode coming to you before Christmas, which will be coming out next week. And yeah, it's just been another great episode. Remember to check out again our personal accounts: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Podcast Network. We appreciate all of you guys' support. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.